No, really.
My friend showed me some footage of you on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
I like your dress,
just
Debbie.
because we, thank you.
Okay, so this is a workshop I went to in January. So it was a long time ago, but it's just really the highlights of what I learned there. But before I started, I came across this quote, and it's by Theodore Roosevelt, but I heard it from Brené Brown. I don't know if you guys know her. She did a TED Talk, and it's one of the most top 5 TED Talks ever watched. And she references this, and I'm just going to change man to teacher, because it just really struck me as a teacher. So it says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the teacher who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotion, who spends herself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly." I just love it because it just talks about failure. And sometimes we have the best classes and sometimes we have the worst classes, but we try, and sometimes it really does feel like we're in the battleground. We're in the front row of the behaviour management issues, the curriculum issues, everything. So I wanted to start with this by also coming to you and saying I am a teacher. I hardly know everything, and some of you have been teaching MYP so much longer than me, and I'm just sharing what I've learned. So I'm not coming to you as a guru in the area. I'm coming to you as a teacher, and hopefully something I say resonates with you and you can take it back into your classroom. So going through the whole thing, just using it as a refresher, starting with the role of conceptual understanding in unit planning. We did a PD, you guys remember, with Elizabeth across the road, and we looked at movies, looking at conceptual understanding. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but basically how I see it is, what do we want our students to understand, and looking at the relationship between concepts. And these concepts are transdisciplinary. So the concepts we're looking at the arts are all the same, but the concepts that we're exploring in the arts can also be explored in INS. So they're transdisciplinary, they're not dance specific. The second thing is the role of global context in unit planning. When I first came to MYP, I was really unsure of global context, as in what's the point? It's just another box to be filled. But I really like it because it provides relevance, the why, what's the point of this, and it really gives kids that point of reference, and also supports international mindedness. So it makes it relevant, makes it meaningful, enhances engagement, and this is the lens we view the unit with. Okay, so looking at my notes, because it was from January, I wanted to be sure that I was on the right track. I hadn't just written a bunch of notes back then, but missed the big idea. So I went back and I found a few things on the internet, and this is referencing Ericsson in 2008. I'm just going to turn that light off so you can better see that screen.
Oh, yeah.
And it just says, concept-based instruction is driven by big ideas rather than subject-specific content, by leading students to consider the contents in which they will use their understanding. Concept-based learning brings real-world meaning to content, knowledge and skills. Students become critical thinkers, which is essential to their ability to creatively solve problems in the 21st century. So again, it's just that real-world meaning, which I think in the arts happens very organically. The arts are such a reflection of society anyway. So by introducing students to universal themes and engaging them in active learning and concept-based instruction, creates connectedness and brings relevance again. So this was all good and it's all important, but what I really got the most out of was statement of inquiry, and this is where I want us to look at today. So if I had to sum up what a statement of inquiry was, And again, you'll all have your own way of writing statements of inquiry. In my words, it is a short sentence that includes key concepts and global exploration in a simple manner. So it's actually really simple. You're just using the key concepts and the global exploration. It is directly linked to the assessment task. So you're taking the statement of inquiry, linking to the assessment task. It is big generalisation, transferable, universal and timeless. And one of the biggest things I liked was making statements of inquiry transfers between disciplines. So I could take a PE one, I could take a science one, I could take an INS one, and vice versa. And so that's what I want to look at the moment, is our statements of inquiry, and see if they are transferable, universal and timeless, or if we're making them too narrow. So looking at statements of inquiry, again, I just wanted to check that I was on the right track. So this just comes up from our IB blog, just keeping up to date with the MYP site. And it says the statement of inquiry is a combination of key concepts, related concepts, and global context, as you can imagine in a concept-driven curriculum model. So it's really looking at, does the statement of inquiry align to other parts of the unit, such as the summative assessment task, for example. If the summative assessment task isn't aligning with the statement of inquiry, then something needs to change. You want it to be directly referenced. Okay, so this is where I'm being vulnerable to you guys, and feel free to judge me, but this is how, when setting up a unit plan, I look at it. So key concepts, what are we learning? Global context, why? So I've got a key concept, a related concept, and a global concept. So culture, identity, communication, personal and cultural expression. So I said personal and cultural expression can communicate our identity. So what I want you to do now is talk to the person next to you. So have a think first before you share. Is, could you use that in your classroom? Could you use that for a unit of work? Is it transferable? So just have a think about that, and just sharing with the person next to you for 2 minutes. Just having a share, could you use that, or how would you need to change it?
Let's see.
I think I could.
You know what's funny? That's really similar to my one.
Which one? Which year level?
My year 9 and 10 one.
So I'm thinking that's similar to our language and literature.
I actually want to check what mine
Our novel study, because it's about style and character.
Yeah, one's about personal and cultural design.
You should be able to build across every single
Yeah. Well, I'm even thinking in maths, if you're looking at Euler's law, and if you're looking at trigonometry, you could actually look at the fact that these originated as a result of personal and cultural expression. And they're used to communicate cultural identities. Yeah, that's really transferable. PE? Yeah, PE, Olympic Games. This is basically the Olympics. What other subjects do we have? INS? Oh, totally INS. Yeah.
Language and literature, easy.
Oh, and language acquisition? Yes. Christian studies? Yes.
So we're just doing a quick think pair share. So you've thought about it, you've shared about it. Now, can you come back and just tell us what you're saying? Because I hear a few interesting things. So starting with you guys, what did you think?
I only talked, so do you want to share yours? Could you use it?
Yeah, I mean, in music here, how do you... I'm sort of trying to do this with year sixes, but how do you convey the ideas of culture? How do you express identity? And, music is, even in pop music, elements of a musician's identity are expressed in their songs. I think it's very...
Transferable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What did you come up with?
We actually went through all the subjects,
Yeah.
and it literally can be used in every single subject. Yeah, we were thinking for maths, it could be used for maths in terms of the historical origins of. I was thinking, my maths knowledge is so limited, but like Pythagoras' theorem came from a cultural way of viewing. The Euler's law came from perspective, Fibonacci numbers, like it's...
But how amazing is that? And then that's how everything's all related in the MYP as well. All of a sudden, dance has the same statement of inquiry than a mathematics class, and it's such an organic link. getting the kids to see outside those
awesome.
subjects. Like
Yeah.
How could you explore your identity? Like, what is Pythagoras? How does that link? That I guess that
I don't
links to
know. I
the
don't know enough
culture
about
that-
Pythagoras' theorem.
Yeah.
But I think it's like pi, you know, like pi is poetry. Like pi is this never-ending eternal number that has like no
numbers in your
bounds.
life, like
Yeah,
where
numbers,
change
yeah.
into your life.
That's
Yeah,
great.
Might
like
be
your
something-
own numerology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
your
you
own-
you
I
remember
become
their
a
birthdays.
teenager. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And timelines of your own life as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Then
You
getting
can make-
outside of that too, looking into the history of those sorts
Yeah.
of things, those people who came up with the concepts and
Yes.
the theories were all scraping outside of their own comfort
Yeah.
zones, their own bounds of their own society. I mean, look at who's gravity.
Newton, yeah.
Yeah, no one believed that the world was weighted down and all that sort of stuff by this
Yeah.
gravity stuff. So
Yep.
he
Or
was
that the
thinking
world
well
was
outside.
round.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or Columbus.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Fair enough. And lastly, you guys, what did you guys come up with?
Yeah, so music, we're thinking the same thing, very much transferable and very similar to one of the statement of inquiries that we have. And also Christian studies, thinking,
Nice.
yeah, would be transferable to that subject too.
Yeah, similar to here at the airways unit. We've got change as our key concept, and like yourself, we've got culture and identity as related concepts. Our statement, we've got the same global context, by the way, personal cultural expression.
Yeah.
So our statement of inquiry is the development of new cultural expressions, such as musical styles, genres, reflects changing social contexts. So, some of that thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's awesome. It's good to see that
Cool.
everyone's doing similar things, even though they're so different in all of them. Okay, so I found this, and I just loved it. We did this. Who was in the MYP of creating authentics units?
Yeah,
Were
we were all.
And you were in this one.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the one that you did? MYP
Inquiry was it?
Inquiry based.
inquiry based.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got this out of the booklet. But they got it out of here, so I went back to it. So it's from the MYP, but then back from the evaluating. And what it looks at is what makes a good statement of inquiry. And so what I'd like you guys to do now is just access one of your unit planners, any unit planners, any year. So if you have your computer, do you want to open up to a unit planner? And just looking at a statement of inquiry, we're just going to have a quick look at what makes a solid statement of inquiry. If you don't have one, do you want to share?
Do you want to do mine, Shona?
Yes, please.
I just finished training to become a language reviewer. So part of it was I had to put this together, and I chose to do Year 8 Term 1. But obviously it's up for grabs and chucking and moving and chunking and all sorts of things.
And then I'd like to ask somebody if they feel comfortable if we could use one of your statement of inquiries. Yeah. And if you don't mind, you just come and write on the board. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Of course. So, the internet. Oh my word, the internet.
Oh, yeah, do you want me to go? I've got mine.
I spent all.
It's working, it's just so slow.
Is there any word on how long it'll be before it's...
I think Terence said it might be a bit sooner than we expected.
What did we expect?
End of the year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But that actual
So
full
this is
rollover.
every day.
You know, I haven't minded it though, you know. I actually now have all the kids on the internet because they can all access it without proxies and that sort of stuff. Yeah. Here, this is the one that we put together. It's a media study looking at the idea of persuasion and visual literacy. The key concept was communication, purpose and style, in the global context, fairness and development, and it was the rights and responsibilities media outlets have in communicating with their consumers. And this is what we put together. So style enables the media outlets to purposefully communicate points of view to either persuade or manipulate. But I'm thinking, let's get rid of media outlets. So style enables the purposeful communication.
Well, that helps, but it's like a blank line, so you kind of know what we're looking at.
Yeah, right.
Do we need to have both related concepts in here?
You can notice our
Not necessarily, because the purpose is here.
Ah.
It is implicitly persuading, implicitly, because that's the purpose. So it could become here. Style enables communication. Style enables the communication
Yeah, I just have no clue.
of various points of view to either persuade, inform, or manipulate.
Why do we need points of
I
view?
don't know, there's something.
Afterwards, let people have a chat.
Really good. Style enables the communication. Style enables communication to either persuade, inform.
To persuade, inform, and manipulate.
Yeah, I think that one.
Yeah, you have a few. Excellent. You just need one, so just choose any one. Okay. Going back to Brené Brown, this is just a quote that I love. And she talks a lot about vulnerability. And she says vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And sometimes I feel really vulnerable when I have to share my statements of inquiry or share teaching things. And it's really great to be able to share what we're doing in the classroom, because that's when we can then become even more creative and change and grow. So it's really great just to be able to share comfortably with each other. And also as well, we should be able to be inspired by each other's statements of inquiry. I should be able to take these statements of inquiry and create my own units. So they're great starting points. Sometimes creating a statement of inquiry is hard work, but when you already have access to them, it's really great.
Do you want to? Is there enough, or do you want another one?
I think that's fine. Ben,
Is that your one of yours?
Yeah, language and literature.
That kind of is saying the same thing as mine, but in a universal way.
Yeah, this is true, hey.
Because I was thinking mine's a bit too narrow.
Dashboard, also MYP school. Art expression can.
We just took out half the words out of
Yeah.
Laura's one, so that it became more generic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's fine if it's too narrow. When I looked at mine were all dance. And I
Yeah.
took that out, I reworded it and changed it. So Bonnie, yours is designing involves meeting market requirements while creatively expressing ideas.
Whereas what Laura's written,
Yep. So style enables communication to persuade, inform, and manipulation.
My writing is terrible, sorry.
No, you're right. So what were you saying, Bonnie? Just the difference
well,
between the two?
they tie into each other.
Yep.
Like the way Laura's got hers written,
Mm-hmm.
I could use that in that same design unit.
Okay. Yep. So you could take Laura's statement of
Yeah.
inquiry, which is for what subject?
Language and literature. It's the Year 8
Amazing.
media study.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And design.
Because yeah, after what you're saying,
Yeah.
reading back, that's too narrow. What I've
Okay.
got.
So because of the design, if you were to change the design to make it more transferable and interdisciplinary. Absolutely. Okay, so Laura, if you
Yeah.
give us an example, if that's okay.
Of course, go for it, go for it.
Tell me, what is your key concept?
The key is communication.
Communication?
Yeah.
And what's your global context?
Is fairness and development.
Fairness and development. Okay, and so how does fairness and development fit into that?
Well, we had that our area within fairness and development was
Yes.
that the rights and responsibilities media outlets have in communicating with their consumers.
Awesome.
So that was where the
That sounds so
persuade,
much like
inform,
Yeah.
that was the communication one. Yeah, that's so. Yeah, no,
I
no.
feel like we had an absolutely really simple one at one point.
Yeah, it was
I can't
killer.
remember what it was.
Media creators, I forget what it was now. But yeah, and then our related concept is style.
Yeah.
So style of language, visual text, written text. And then the purpose was our second related concept. And so that was the persuade, inform, and manipulate.
Yeah.
Because that's the implicit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. But you see how that statement of inquiry just encompasses all those key
Yeah.
ideas in one statement. And as we noted before, that could easily be moved to design. What about art? Sam, like, could you use that in art? Style and-
For sure.
So movements and genres and.
Well, even this one that I had up kind of could link as well.
What was it?
Maybe not. Emotions and personality can be represented visually. So
That's good.
I guess if you were thinking about persuade, inform, manipulate, like
Yeah.
you could convey particular aspects of emotions or parts of your
Yeah.
personality to inform or manipulate the audience or persuade them of particular things about yourself. So I guess in making a
Yeah.
self-portrait, and that's what they were doing, you could be selective with those things too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Well, you
absolutely.
can even do style enables communication.
I'm just thinking the
And
same
leave
thing.
it at
Get
that.
rid of persuade,
Because
inform, and
then-
manipulate.
Without
Yeah.
persuade, inform, manipulate, that
Yeah.
then becomes a generic statement.
It's so much more open.
But I guess in a way
enables
that's-
communication.
Yeah.
That I could use in dance. Style
Yeah.
enables communication.
Well, even
Or could we say
you could use the
purposeful?
persuade, inform, and manipulate with dance, because you did that with your last unit anyway, with the asylum seekers one. Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
refugee
Leaves an
dance.
impression.
Yeah, so it's persuading and informing at the same time, perhaps. Well, and it's manipulating people's opinions.
I guess that's the thing, like the manipulate thing kind of has, you know, the word manipulate has that negative
It's
connotation,
negative,
but it's
yeah.
not really like,
Yes.
it's just being selective. Like,
Yeah.
and with self-portraits, if you look through
Yes.
history, you know,
Yeah.
a portrait of Henry VIII will have him with that big cap thing on his
Yeah.
penis where his armour is, like, as if. Like, it's just, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like,
But that's the
Yeah.
visual
that's
representation.
the whole, you know,
Yeah.
you're portraying that person you want to be perceived as.
Perceived
So
as, yeah.
that's exactly what those things could do.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's really great. Okay, going down to
That's really
dance.
cool.
So artistic expression can be a vehicle for the communication of an idea or belief to an audience.
Is your sorry.
Is this music?
Yeah. The key concept is communication, related audience and expression. The global context is personal and cultural expression. And the area of exploration just ties in the global context with that statement of inquiry. Students will explore ways in which artists personally express ideas, opinions, feelings, beliefs and values in response to social and cultural issues.
Yep. What do you think? Do you think that this is something that can be transdisciplinary or
Well,
is
that's
it
through the arts.
through the
definitely.
arts? Okay.
Yeah,
Through
and
form.
literature and the like.
Kind of the same again.
Yeah, very similar, can be taken down similar avenues. What if it lost the artistic and just had
Yeah,
expression?
expression.
Yeah, I like
Or
something
creative
or
expression.
artistic something.
Yeah, it could be creative because I mean, maths is so creative, science is so
Then
creative,
you could
PE is so
incorporate
creative.
literature
Yeah,
and the writing of
Yeah.
novels.
Yeah, just opens it up, makes it a little bit more
Yeah.
broader, more transdisciplinary.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what I'd like to do
That's
is just
really
take about 5 minutes and just finding another statement of inquiry with a partner, just have a chat and see, is it
which subject shall we do?
transdisciplinary? Before we do that,
I don't know. You pick one.
really quickly,
Yeah.
what I loved about this page and got me excited about it because I could see it visually is that a statement of inquiry is only beginning and developing when it may not include a clearly identifiable key concept, related concept, and global context. And that, that really shifted my thinking in MYP. Whereas one that's a really solid statement of inquiry includes a key concept, related concepts, and specific, relevant, engaging global concepts and exploration. So that's just a really simple way to create a solid statement of inquiry, meaningfully connects key and related concepts, develops specific disciplinary knowledge as it goes on and is unpacked. So that's something when you're looking with the person next to you at your statement of inquiry, just having a look at those things and where you think it fits here.
So sharing is in, it's
Yes.
transdisciplinary?
It's almost like sharing is exemplary.
Exemplary.
It's the highest.
Yeah.
So think
Yeah.
about
So it's worthy
No,
of
I get
sharing.
it, but
Yeah.
just sharing seems like
Yeah,
a weird...
so MY it's a IB,
And that's how-
It's a
Worthy
positive,
of-
yes. This is how we're
Worthy of
assessed.
sharing?
So starting it, you are using it.
Yeah.
You are
Yes.
using the aspects or you are using...
You are able to
and it's sharing.
It's like a
you want to share it
yeah,
with
it's like
other.
a 7 and 8.
units.
5, 6, or 3, 4. Yeah.
Transdisciplinary.
I get what. How does the terminology work? Is what
Yeah.
I'm getting at. I don't get it either.
I think it's like a positive way, yeah.
It's the best one. That's the best version.
Yeah, that's what we aim for.
Okay,
Yeah.
so have a chat, guys, and
Yeah.
brainstorm your statements of inquiry, because when you
Let's
get a good
continue
solid
on.
one, it's great. I love it.
So, unit 2.
Got anything around
To me, still the best one that we ever did was Euros, and it was characters can talk to me, and it was so simple, but it was the best unit we've ever done with the Euros.
Yeah,
Because they could really
communicate
communicate.
across it.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, because I think that would be like an emotional. It was just so good because the kids could understand, and it was that class that we had troubles with. That Year 8 class that we were really struggling with, and they were just they were so clued in. They were just so clued in. But here, so Year 9, Romeo and Juliet, Trust Me, I'm a Friar.
Yeah.
Intertextuality provides us multiple perspectives that show how healthy relationships should be built on trust and autonomy.
That's the unit we're currently doing.
Very verbose.
Fibres.
They've got it all though.
Like making collaborative coral reefs. So
They've got perspectives, they've got
Yeah, so really good actually. Like
point of view is basically multiple perspectives,
Just one of them would be great.
all ways of seeing.
They haven't really.
I think it's a hard concept to work with in a transdisciplinary approach in times of intertextuality.
Use one of them.
Yeah, we don't need to.
Not that much.
And
What did you
that's
think
already
the kids seem to
can.
care about?
Oh, sorry.
You don't have to ask her any class.
I was thinking you read just what I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
I've got,
I wouldn't do
I've got others in other
Intertextuality
fields who
provides
probably
us
care
multiple
more.
perspectives that show how healthy
Some of them
relationships are built upon trust and
I was
autonomy.
trying to get a list.
Care about the making or care about the environment?
Because it's sort of narrowing it down, like
Identities and relationships are a matter of perspective.
It's not, fun. But they knew a lot when I brought it up and we were talking about
Identity and relationships are a matter of perspective.
They knew a lot about it and knew about the Great Garbage Patch. Actually,
perspective.
I wonder if I can find that video again.
You've already
It's a really
included
good
point of
video
view.
about
Perspectives.
Marine Explorer Park.
Or is it more about the relationship between? It's almost like these are the wrong concepts though, because you want the relationship between the concepts.
Down
Perspective
Panama,
intertextuality.
area, like
Or perspective. A point of view is already there. A perspective is a point of view.
Yes, are we doubling up?
plastics
Possibly.
and stuff.
What about where would?
Where's the other? Where's the other concepts? Oh, sorry.
The Great Garbage Patch.
So if we're putting it there, intertextuality in and of itself,
21-year-old
perspective,
that has developed through a solar powered bull will actually go around and pick
Or could we say even like relationships and identity? They almost model into intertextuality.
yeah, they do.
So we are complex beings. So could we say identity thought, identity relationships model or are intertextual
Environmental issues affect all of us as global citizens.
and provide us with multiple perspectives.
Yeah,
Even like
Kieran's
human
asked
conditions.
really
Yeah, but then we're
gave-
narrowing it
sort of
again.
not.
Yeah. So identity relationships, this is true, are intertextual.
They're too consumerist. They're like, oh, we can
Yeah, I
find
think
that.
they
Well, what about
see it as an
intertextual
issue
and
that they
a matter of
can't sort
perspective?
Intertextual,
Sort of like a-
and a matter of
And
perspective.
even like they did a
Identity and relationships
source
are
analysis.
intertextual and
They
a
did a
matter of
source analysis
perspective.
on
Are both
an
intertextual and a matter of
article.
perspective.
And we sort of targeted the articles around famous people, like the famous people.
Put them both in if you want, but I don't think you needed both.
Intertextual and a matter of perspective.
Yeah, well, it wasn't one of them.
Yeah,
It's a statement.
Yeah, that's good. Then you're
But,
actually drawing in
I don't know.
perspectives,
I'm not sure.
intertextuality,
Could be the time of year.
point of view, identities and relationships.
So you could use this as a data unit for maths and look at statistics in abuse relationships and things like that. I mean, it probably will be a pretty pleasant unit.
Oh, but the kids will be into it. You know.
Divorce statistics and things like that.
It's relevant to their
true.
world. It's INS,
But the rubbish
history,
is so much
Geography.
better managed up here
Environment.
than other places. Like,
science.
That's better than that.
the
Yeah, that's
rubbish
the
in
thing.
general, like,
I'll make a note
but
for
then
the year
the kids
19
can
next
then
year.
use just like the experience set up at the school.
Communities of worship
Like,
and
they just
stuff
put all
like
crap into them.
So
I just watched a video
creative.
on a private girls' school and won the grant.
Oh, yeah.
They got $700 for their design
For their what? Oh, did they?
Just the chicken.
Yeah, that's really
Oh,
cool.
they did the same thing.
Yeah, but they got $700 because they need a facilitator
Then a
to come and
task
show
that
you how to
connects
do
to
it.
that. You can even make like a class anthology,
Oh,
you
they
know,
might
like
still be
a,
now.
But it's not a problem, doesn't really lose.
a creation of
We're
intertextual,
only
or
asking for
even like a beginning of a year unit.
And this was a
Fix
school that
laws,
already had like
class
an
identity
environmental
relationships.
setup. It's like, come
I
on,
don't like
try to
that.
get
How
started.
intertextually woven together, it provides a diverse perspective.
But they actually put together a video.
That's really cool. I want to teach that.
Yeah.
Then you can actually change your questions, because this is like your what, your why, and then your how. This is how we're going to be teaching it.
Affect. Maybe just
It's a lot of questions.
us as global citizens.
Oh, it was written at the start
It's
of
kind
the
of a
year.
bit more like
So with the
then
relationship
you
situation that it was.
Oh yeah, they're good ones though. That's really good.
Yeah,
What is a
they just want the
relationship?
kids picking
we
up
should be
more.
saving this change.
What makes a healthy
The other changes
relationship?
As well. I'm like, good,
What types of relationships are there?
Okay. So
Order
there's that
family and
one.
friends.
Do you want to look at one of yours?
Yeah.
So you might keep with the, what makes a healthy relationship, and you might say to the kids, what other questions do we want to know around it?
Because it's almost like you have your main question that come as a result of this,
Yeah.
and then from there, the kids make their questions.
Yep.
They're pretty awesome with their questions, I must
That's
say.
the top lesson on Wednesday.
Apparently our year
This
7s
is
coming
back in
through are going to be
time.
awesome when it comes to that first part of the
This will
inquiry.
be our postcard cultural
That'll
unit.
be
Oh, yeah,
really,
true.
really good.
Take a break.
Yeah.
It's a bit too wordy.
No, see, the thing is, I struggle with it because
So I need to go and rewrite that task then.
Mine is two though. Oh, because it went back to. That's fine.
Purpose.
Oh,
it's wordy, but it's open.
yeah, it's there.
The airwaves, oh yeah.
Is that, oh, that was the one we were talking about.
Yeah, so that's...
That one? Development of new cultural expressions reflects changing societal social context.
What's the
Yeah,
first
so
unit
it's,
last year?
you move from like
What it's a statement
blues to
of
rock and roll to rap.
Or enables
Yeah,
connection
that transition.
within communities.
Yeah, that each needed the other to.
Yeah, and each time they face sort of revolutionary.
This could almost be a factual question.
Okay.
So we could say, it's like the content, looking at the next year 9 one. So creativity, setting and genre. Writers use a dystopian genre and settings to create warnings about the impact of scientific innovations.
So we've gone too specific.
Really specific, because that's your exploration.
Probably
Could just simply be, you know, I think all genre can serve as a warning. Horror serves as a
Sorry, do we
warning.
need global context in there? Is that what? Do we
Well,
need
it's meant to be framing it, so it's in there,
Jane Barden.
but it's giving us the reason why.
Okay, guys, can we just finish up there?
Sounds like Olympics.
Does anyone want to share? It was great overhearing and seeing someone from design as well, because it's so different.
Yeah.
2 questions. One, did you find your statements of inquiry could be changed, or they were already incorporating these aspects?
No, they all pretty much needed to be changed.
Yeah, needed to be changed.
Yeah, mine needed.
Yeah.
In what ways? Just to make them more transferable?
Yeah.
or-
So everything that we looked at was very, very unit specific, like
Yeah.
subject specific and unit style specific. So it was very formulaic and didn't have any breadth.
Yep.
So yeah.
So we've got here, the one that we looked at for year 9 was
Intertextuality
Yeah.
provides us with multiple perspectives that show how healthy relationships should be built upon trust and autonomy.
so that was what was there.
That was what was
Yeah.
there. So we changed it to identity and relationships are intertextual and a matter of perspective.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah.
It's still not really kid friendly though, is it?
You see a 9 though. Year 9 unit 4, term 4.
And I guess you could then break those
Yeah.
words down in the factual questions, just to get the kids more confident with that language.
You could break down
Yeah,
that
so
many
what is
words, the
intertextuality?
previous that
Yeah.
lost
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
Yeah.
completely. I
Yeah,
didn't
but
get that at all.
the second one, my brain started to tick over, thinking like, yes, I
Yeah.
could use that, and that's inspiring. Yeah, and
They're
then
totally
I guess if you wanted
transferable.
to make it more student friendly, you could then go back again if you wanted to. But at the same
Yeah.
time, if you're confident you're going to unite to get that language,
Yeah.
yeah.
You teach the language, yeah.
I feel like mine maybe a word or two, but I feel like I've already been through that process where they were really very
Yes.
specific, like
Yep.
about using, you know, elements of design and art and being really like, they were really narrow. So it's kind of over time been opening up a bit.
Yep.
I think that one, I guess the bracketed bits for this one of Kieran's is when Ben's probably, the development of new cultural expression reflects changing societal context. After expression it says music styles / genres just to put it into context, but then that's, I don't know, I don't think it's a problem to have that bit in there because it just contextual.
Yep.
A bit more.
Yep,
And
definitely.
it
And
can
then
be
also
transferred too. Yeah.
you can unpack it for the students as well. So you
Yeah.
can have your statement of inquiry, but then you can unpack it.
Yeah.
Okay, so going on to the next thing, after you have your statement of inquiry, have your inquiry questions. And I just mentioned there before that you can use inquiry questions to unpack the statement of inquiry. So when you look at your inquiry questions, you're really looking at and wanting to ask yourself, are they broad enough to allow inquiry? Have you considered how and when you'll address these questions? Do these launching inquiry questions have the potential to initiate student engagement? We want students to be engaged from the very beginning by creating engaging inquiries questions. And one of the best ways to do that is to ask kids, what questions do you have?
Yeah.
So it can actually be quite organic and students can tell you their questions and they can then help you create inquiry questions. Again, something that I got from a blog that I thought just made it very simple. Do the questions address the chosen concept for the unit? Because if they don't, then you're off topic. So having the questions go back to the statement of inquiry. Do the inquiry questions relate to each other so that students can build on their developing knowledge and understanding? So they're all interrelated and all building on each other. So, starting with factual, the foundations, topic can be mentioned here, but they're still open for inquiry. So they're not necessarily the answer is 2 + 2 = 4. It's open, it's still an inquiry question. And words that are useful at this stage are, for example, is what. So, what is artistic expression? We then go on to conceptual. So open-ended questions which are drawn from the statement of inquiry. And again, questions should not lead to an answer, keeping them open to allow for inquiry. And words that are helpful to use are how and why. And these are just examples of words. They don't have to be a how or why, but they're a good point to start with. Okay, debatable are my favourite, and that's where I like to spend the majority of my time sometimes. And these are really good for doing things such as do, is, should, could. It's something you want to discuss and argue about, and it should have, if possible, 2 distinct sides. So it can equally be a yes or a no. It is debatable. You don't want a question that clearly has a correct answer. So one of the best ways that I use as a test is could you discuss this over a beer in the pub? If you're not interested in it, the kids probably aren't going to be either. For example, do artists have a responsibility to be agents of change? Should art forms be traditional and local or nomadic and dynamic?
Oh, that's cool.
Should culture be preserved? So thinking about questions that are open-ended, can be yes or no, and that are engaging. So looking at the statement of inquiry we've just looked at, going through with the person next to you, have a quick flick over, looking at the factual, conceptual, and then debatable, and just spend a couple of minutes seeing if you want to rejig anything, or can you make them more foundational to the statement of inquiry, resulting in a more in-depth debate in your class. So same unit plan, same partners.
I was just thinking, how have you had the unit planner before and like your your key concept is your what, your global context, your why.
Yep.
I was just thinking it's almost like the inquiry questions of the how. So you've got like your own little inquiry cycle, but then within that, within the inquiry questions, it's like factual what, conceptual why, debatable how. So like cycles within cycles within cycles within cycles.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
I think that is.
Yeah.
I think it is really cool, and I think it's very organic and natural as well.
Yeah.
Like it all filters through.
It's this forever circle, isn't it? Just dancing around.
Dancing around. Yeah. So guys, having a look at your debatable questions, and then
pretty cool
let's
how it
come back
works.
and share.
It'd be
See
nice to
if
have
it's
a
something we
little
want to talk about over
with
here.
like the factual why, all this sort of stuff.
That is here, it's all here.
There's
There's heaps of it here.
This is what I've got for factual.
Is it on the unit planner? Like the blank line?
It was in the sector one, but then the sector fell apart for us, and I had little drop-down boxes.
Yeah.
It took me a week to create it, and then the
Yeah,
whole thing
right.
fell to pieces.
I'll talk about that.
But then,
What
yeah,
do you think?
so I might just add it into the actual
But
What's that look like?
drive as
But
well,
then-
the
I
unit
guess
drive, so
that's
it's just
me too.
easy
Yeah,
when
but
you
like,
access.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But that's it.
Planning process.
Some kids, surprisingly, some of the kids that parent teacher,
no,
they
that
have
actually,
been,
I'm quite enjoying
they've
it.
experienced it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's all?
Oh, no, this is just too much.
Like it was
Just like the
I've seen this
like tiny little
Oh,
card
that was really sad.
debatable,
Yeah.
I went to that
factual,
place and now it's all
conceptually
completely
debatable. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
and just
Which is really
have like a
weird.
little
like
who, what, when, why, all that sort of stuff. Like the terms that you would use to just even that, like that basic stuff up there that you'd have.
interesting.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
of course, I'll make that easy.
Or the words that you'd use to start the questions.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
The question
So can I
prompts.
interrupt? You know that circle in our circle. So is this your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like the what, the why, and the how. Because your inquiry questions is how you inquire
I don't know.
into
It could even be that
the what and the why.
Yep.
There's your SOI in the middle. Then, but within that, within your actual inquiry questions, within the
No, I
how,
think it was really
there's actually a
and it
what.
needed to be.
So your
because
factual is your what
they
question,
hadn't
your
done
conceptual is your why
sexual
question,
before.
your better was your how.
It was really like we introduced
Yeah.
But then again, within the debate, we've also got your what, why, how as well.
Yeah.
dye-dyeing and felting.
So it's just
and
forever
all these
cycle
different
within a cycle within a
processes
cycle within a
which
cycle.
probably
Yeah, yeah, and it just keeps cycling
Yeah.
around.
So, but I guess that's the
Yeah.
dynamic
To
thought
actually
process
Yeah.
that we want the kids
to be
able to visualise for themselves.
It's kind of
Yeah.
out of
So making
not
things
out of
visible,
context,
making inquiry visible.
I just love how to see thinking visible, to see your thinking visible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just sort of makes sense,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah. No, I really like that.
And it makes you think, I think I'm just
Well,
going
that's
to,
sort of- that was
because I don't
my
really like that
thing,
inquiry
so
cycle.
everyone's
I think it's been working too much.
Yeah.
Everyone has to make something.
Maybe.
So playing with different modes, and I think the more simple we have it, just that, even just an inquiry cycle that's what, why, how.
What, why, how? Yeah.
It's just perfect. And the head, heart, and hand.
Head, heart, hands.
What
Yeah.
needs to be.
Yeah. Head, heart,
It's so
hands.
simple. The
Yeah.
why, the what, and the how. And the kids just get it.
Yeah.
They love it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
It's
good.
really cool. This is brilliant, Lyndal.
They've been making them
I'm
out
having my brain's
I'm
clicking.
starting my German lessons.
These two is going to kill me. Crush us all.
With the exams for you, they have exactly one.
year one.
What about everything?
When does music become labelled as provocative or offensive?
10 minutes of reading time.
Sorry, what did you have? Debatable. Sorry.
I think the last statement was probably very, we were
Someone listen to
yeah.
See?
Yeah, so
Which one
Yeah, I know.
say is the predominant one?
I've got 3 year 12 classes that are going to safe.
That's very different to that one.
The inappropriate offensive one.
Yeah, I was there in the city today with my year 12.
Does that be then talking about the rap?
They went well.
Like is it
They were very happy. Sierra was very happy.
I think you're saying
Yeah.
like,
She said it was like
yeah. But I think
I've said it as well. What's that?
Because I've been into things before and thought I did fantastic and then walked out and got, Didn't do so well as I thought.
It always is included, isn't it? It is a bit compact.
What's been said could be very offensive to the right audience.
What do you think? Let's come back and rewrite these ones.
Then when I went back in.
What is the style? That's too specific. It's too something specific. What is the style?
Yes. Well, that's obvious from the right.
Or what style is employed to communicate point of view?
Yeah, cool.
Because in that you can have.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What is style?
What is style?
Sexual language.
Style. We can even have.
Is this the refund?
And your how
No,
do
we
we
talked about that one.
communicate?
It was.
Yeah, how do we communicate?
Is it all of our responsibility?
Yeah.
That's the question. Is
How do we understand communication? How do we
all of our
communicate?
responsibility? So
How do we communicate the first way and then afterwards?
Yeah, because you want them to understand the analysis part of it.
I
do we
think that's
understand
maybe
different
we can
types
come
of
back to that one again when they have done it and they've got their artist statements and they're trying they're thinking more about the conceptual side of things that they can then debate whether they think whether they
What forms
get
of
passionate about it
communication?
or not. I'm sure they'll all say yes, but then about the how is the tricky bit. It's sort of like it's a bit of a barrier. Like, then what do I do?
Deeper learning, deeper language.
But there was like a
What is the
particularly
purpose of
environment
these
day a
forms?
while ago. This is more
What
to
is
do
the
with
purpose
certain
of
species. But I had it up on the wall and talk about little things we can do. We obviously can't all go and do coral research and things like that, but just simple
That's a
things
good
like
meeting.
not flushing your fish down the toilet when,
Then is the
when it
purpose?
dies. Because the diseases.
If the purpose is
things
to persuade or
will go
manipulate,
over water, dead
can
fish,
communication be honest?
the waterways.
Something new.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like that fish is sick, and then it's going to put sickness into the. So
So what is hold on?
That one I'm on.
Or does purpose negate?
Really?
That's typically does purpose
Okay, guys, we're going to
Affect
push
honesty.
on. Before we do, does somebody, does anyone want to share their devotables?
yeah.
Go, Kieran.
When does music become labelled as provocative or offensive / inappropriate?
Ooh, okay. And that would be great because people would have different understandings and different levels of what is offensive, what is appropriate. So then you could have those two sides. And then also as well, if you say that that's provocative, are you putting like a dampening freedom of speech? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we talked, I was just talking to Sam about it, we looked at Same Love last week, the week before, in my class.
Yeah.
And that not only did it elicit responses there and then, we were able to fit it social context with the rugby grand final.
Absolutely. So it's real world as well.
Yeah, and it's very current.
It's real world.
It's current and it's them too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's that you're speaking their language in a way for getting them to think.
I like the offensive / inappropriate though, because that they're different. They're very different. They're different things, but then
meanings, different
Because
contexts.
Eminem's killing his girlfriend with a bit of a car is inappropriate. Yeah, and also offensive.
yeah. But then in the same way people would find that offensive, there would be as many people finding Same Love
Another offensive.
offensive, or if not even more offensive, because it's so.
We watched
such
the
an
grand
opposition.
final at home,
Such a
and my
polarised view.
in-laws were horrified that song was being used to push a political agenda at a.
But then there's, the Batuta Advocate, the satirical
Yeah.
website.
Batuta.
That nobody complained when they played K-San a couple of years ago, which is a highly political song.
Yeah.
It's about choosing what you're.
This is
Choosing what offends you.
Yeah.
It's
That's a great
not
one.
Your
it's a
perspective
song
could
that's
be your
not
concept
at the
then.
time, like it's not current. It's not a current issue. K-San was a political issue.
And Delilah as
Probably
well.
used.
Saying, why Delilah is about a guy killing his wife, but they
Yeah.
played it at the grand final.
Yeah. So, okay, there we go. We're
typical.
all happy. We could have a glass of wine and keep chatting about that. So excellent.
And that could
Casey
be your
point.
orientation, time and space, could be your global context.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on, so just conscious of the time. Okay, looking at grasp tasks, you all know these, but this is just a really great way to, I think, keep the assessment authentic, and it's just a great way to see, okay, am I on track? What am I doing? And this is just a little model that I use. I don't know what templates you use for brass task, if you use a template at all. But this is one that I found, and I just found it so straightforward that it just really helped me create an authentic assessment that was clearly linked to the statement of inquiry. Okay, so again, I'll just type this up, and I'm not saying this is great, it's just an honest example of what I've done. So my statement of inquiry was about personal and cultural expression, communicating identity. My goal was to create a cultural dance that reflected the identity of a nation or a people group, and this is for year 7 and 8. The role: you are a choreographer and a performer, so they have to make it up and they have to perform. They're being marked on both. The audience, the target audience is a multi-cultural audience, and you need to convince the audience that your dance is an authentic representation of that culture. So if I'm doing a Torres Strait Island traditional dance, I have to really convince them that it is an authentic dance down to the small details of what defines that style. Situation, this was from last year. You've been hired to promote and demonstrate your culture through dancing at the opening ceremony of the Rio Olympic Games. So it linked in with Olympic Games, real world context. Product, you'll create a 2-minute cultural dance piece that is performed in front of the class. You'll explore and research the specific techniques and styles of your chosen nation or people group. I then went through and checked that my criteria could be marked in that task, and I wasn't clutching straws by ticking certain criteria. So working out that these following criteria was done through the dance, and then the other criteria was done through my process and research. So it was a real fusion between process and product from last year. Yeah? So just double checking that all the criteria is, and the kids know where's the process, where's the product, what's being assessed. Okay, lastly, almost there, we're just learning, looking at what skills do we want students to demonstrate in the unit. We cannot assess anything that we do not teach. So sometimes I think we can assume that students know certain things, but they don't. Sometimes students really struggle to research and find a good Google site that has proper, authentic information, not Wikispaces or Wikipedia. So if we're marking them on their research abilities, have we taught them how to research? Have we taught them what a good internet site is? If we're marking them on group work, have we taught them ways to work productively and collaboratively in that group? So it is purposefully teaching the ATLs. It's not something we're just doing, we're actually teaching them and breaking that skill down for them to succeed in their task. And lastly, it's the role of every teacher to do that, to be teaching the ATLs. And that is it. Okay, so thank you. I hope you got something out of that discussion, and it's just so nice, just even for me going back and thinking about my statement of inquiry, and just a reminder to go back and just have a look and have a play with everything.
Yay, Lyndal.